when you think about what separates us from our adversaries, and I say, you know, our adversaries are brilliant. They're also lethal. But do they love each other the way that our folks do? I'm not talking about, you know, I'm talking about the kind of love when all chaos erupts around you, and the only thing that matters is the folks next to you. That's what matters most to them. And that's not always just the bullets flying kind of chaos, but now we are in a little bit of a chaotic thing that we have to lead through it. Professionally now, we've got these things now that, you know, you see where you're standing with OMLs and everything else, and now we're fighting against careerism, just to be honest with you. And so sometimes guys, just not only is the mission changed, but now the professional evolutions have changed, and you lead through it and you go back to the purpose and core. You said hard about what I've been able to see is when guys put together, going back a little bit to the basics of putting together good training plans. It's not just revving up and going deploying and going back, resting and doing it again. But E7s, E8s are putting together these long training plans to get ready for these things. They're specializing in an ODA. Guys are seeing that because they're seeing the purpose of what they're doing. And that is starting to, we're getting out of the draws. They're in Pine Land. We're getting out of those draws, and we're getting into where we're seeing the end point. We're seeing the cadre and the tent there. But that's what it is. It's just making sure people remember and believe in the purpose. And we have the best folks in the world. They're going to give you professional buy-in all day long. But really what we need is that personal buy-in too. You got to personally see it. And that is 100% my personal responsibility. That's all of our personal responsibility to make sure that we get personal buy-in to go on the professional, and then we'll lead through us. And that way when the next terror does happen, then we'll be galvanized and ready for it.
Yeah, so, you know, we're ultimately responsible and assume the risk of all our soldiers being trained and ready to train before they do anything downrange. Mm-hmm. So one of the things, and Sergeant Major, obviously, he's on this as well, is our operational force is very young and inexperienced nowadays. It's just a fact. They're very young. And the feedback we get from those team sergeants is we need more time to train. And we listen to them, and we're going to provide that, you know, so they can get 6 months individual, 12 months collective training. And so what that means is more training back home, deployment, and then do that rotation over and over. So it gives them head on pillow, but also those training reps that they're asking for, because it comes from those senior leaders that are actually training the men and the women. So we listen to that, and that's one way that we're getting after this as well. And again, these are asks that we get from our subordinate units, and obviously very much in the CSM's lane. But as a collective, you know, that's one way we're getting after it, and I think it's the way to go after it.
Part of leadership is providing the vision. When we sit in charge of, you know, they say it's lonely at the top, and I often think about that for a second, and you're like, how can it be lonely at the top? I have all these people around me all the time. But a leader's job, and when we separate out leadership and management, right? Like, you know, management, did somebody show up on time? You know, do they have all their stuff? Are they in the right uniform? That's management. But leadership, and why leadership is lonely at the top, is because you got to look forward. You've got to see everything around you and then be able to take a step back, think and analyze that, and then say, now where do I want to be? 5 years, 10 years, 15 years. And then that's where great staffs come into play, because then you can turn around as a leader and say, hey, here's the vision. Someone go tell me how to make it happen. And usually those people are way better at it than we are when we have that idea. And the reason why I bring all this up is because I want to ask you both, what's your vision for the regiment over the next 5 to 10 years?
What I see in the next 5 to 10 years, and that's a good one. Because my vision, and now let me caveat all this, if I could still have an H harness and a butt pack, you know what I mean? That's the kind of guy I am, you know what I mean? But what I see is a truly galvanized force, and 5 years is going to be before you know it, and unfortunately I'm at my age where you get into palm cycles, you think in 5 and 10 year kind of things. But I just see it galvanized where we know who we are. We have this a great identity. We're integrated, you know, with our SOPs and civil affairs, and integrated operationally. We're synced globally with our different task forces. We found that good blend between the man, train, and equip, and the driving operations, and that's where I see us. I see perhaps the same pride you're seeing here with the shoulders back, the chest out. It's awfully proud to be in special operations, being here today. I see in that times 10. I'm going to stop for a second, gather some thoughts. Chief, and take it.
Yeah, so that is a very good question. Again, 5 years, right around the door. But the way I envision it is, and you kind of mentioned it, it gets lonely at the top. I don't think so. I think that's if you build good command teams, it never gets lonely at the top, right? That's just my perspective. So 5-10 years, if you continue to do that, we're already hitting to that next 5 years, just right around the corner. What the CSM just mentioned, all the integration, the training, the modernization. The demand signal, in my opinion, is still there, and is still going to be there for soft forces. The big one that I envision in 5 and 10 years, though, is actually being, hopefully, I wouldn't say 100% because you just can never be 100%, but being that much further along. And I mentioned earlier, integration with the joint force, right? And that's big Army, but also the rest of the joint force. That integration, that's probably more 5 to 10 years, not 5 years. But I think that's key to success here in the future, understanding not just our role in support of or lead of, but everyone else's roles. And that's a big one we're also getting after. We've seen that as a potential gap based on what we're training with now.
I think of remember Street Fighter 2? Remember that game?
I do remember it.
Did you? What do you remember the characters? Like, what was your go-to character? Do you remember?
I can't remember.
I mean, you're putting us on the spot with things.
I can't remember a single character.
I'm over here thinking, like, damn, I should probably have my own vision. But there's a couple characters. If you're the one guy, you win, you become the mayor. If you're the girl, you go on, you become the queen. But there's a character named Ryu, and you go through and you defeat all the characters and you win. You know what Ryu's celebration is once he wins?
No.
It's him walking off, seeking the next challenge. So I think the vision, and this is going to be super in the platitude, and like you said, you come up with it and everyone else execute the details. It's just a humble force with steel in their spines that is on to the next challenge, no matter it is. You're setting the table, and then you're on to the next thing. And I think culturally, you're not loud. We're embracing the quiet professional. We're looking how we need to look. We certainly have a lot more robots and things that we're dealing with. We're all augmented with AI and all those kind of fancy things. But at the core of it, we're seeking meaning without the expectation of credit.